Hey, what is up everybody? If you're watching this in early 2020, really hope you guys are staying safe and staying healthy in this weird and really quickly changing world that we're living in right now. Since we're pretty much all locked up, quarantined right now, I figured it would be a perfect time to put together a what's in my camera bag video. I get a lot of questions on Instagram and YouTube, just people asking what gear that I use. So hopefully this video should clear up a lot of those questions. So I'm gonna break this video up into two distinct sections. First being the gear that I actually own, and then on the other side is the gear that I actually use and travel with day to day. Because there's a very clear distinction between the two. Because like most people in this industry, I have way too much stuff sitting around that I never use, and quite honestly, I didn't even know existed, that I really need to sell, but nonetheless, I still have. So I'll go over all of that gear first and then hop into what's in my bag after that. And the first camera that I'm gonna be talking about is actually this one. So this camera is a Sony a7 III, and it is an absolute beast. I love it. It's really small for traveling around. It costs only $2,000, which is really cheap for a camera that does what it can do. And I don't really have any plans of upgrading in the near future. And next up is the lens that this is being shot on as well. And that lens is the 16-35 G Master from Sony. So to start off, I'm pretty minimal about lenses. I don't have a bunch of them sitting around just because I don't use a lot of different ones. The majority of the stuff that I do is run and gun travel, and it just doesn't make sense to bring a bag full of lenses. So I have a couple good lenses that I really like that I bring with me everywhere that kind of covers all my bases, and I stick with that. And the G Master is definitely the one that I find on my camera most. The reason I like that lens is because it is, for one, it is an f2.8, so it's really good in low light. Also, it's really sharp, and since it's natively adapted to Sony, the autofocus is really good. And the cool thing about the a7 III is you can toggle in between APS-C and just full frame mode, so that lens can turn into a 70mm with just one click of a button. It is a pretty expensive lens, but I figure it's something that I'm gonna keep for 10-15 years, so I might as well invest in something good now. All right, on to the next lens, which is this one here. So this lens here is actually something that not a lot of people actually even know really exist, and it is a 24-240mm. And it's tiny, so for traveling it's really nice because I can just throw this in my bag, and I know that I have a lens that can pretty much cover every single base that this one can't. And when I do need that f2.8, I can just switch over to that lens and I'm all good. If I was to recommend a new photographer starting out and getting a lens, I would 100% recommend this lens. A lot of people would think that it's not that sharp, it's not that clear, but it actually does a really good job, and some of my favorite photos I've ever taken have been on this lens. So when I'm walking around a city, this is usually the lens that I have on just because it's so dynamic. I can zoom in, I can zoom out, I can get close to things, and I don't have to worry about switching lenses all the time. And that lens only comes in at, I think, like around $1,000, so it's not like a crazy expensive lens either. And also, this is just super satisfying. Shit. Alright, on to the last lens that I have. And that lens is this one. So this lens actually only costs $150 on Amazon, and it is a 50mm 1.8. This is just for portraits. Sometimes I shoot astrophotography on it just because it has that 1.8. But I don't actually use it a ton. It's one of those things that I like to have, but don't use a ton. And as you can see on the back of this, there's a little extension, and what this is actually a macro attachment. It's just a lens extension tube. Basically turns this lens into a super macro lens, so I can get really, really close detailed shots of things. And these are actually on Amazon, I think for like $40 or something like that. I'll put the link in the description. If you're looking for just like a fun thing to play around with, and you want to just get some macro shots, this is definitely it. Alright, next up is drones, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a section of like cinematic drones, and then I'm going to get into all my FPV drones because frankly I have so many FPV drones that they kind of just deserve their own section. So first off is cinematic drones. So right here is my go-to cinematic drones. If I have a job that I need a super reliable drone that can go really far away, shoots insane quality, and I just know is always gonna work, I always go with the Mavic 2. In my opinion, this thing is actually like probably the craziest piece of camera equipment in our generation. It's a flying 4K camera that can go like miles away from yourself, and it packs down like this big. Like 10 years ago, you would have had to hire a helicopter pilot to get the same shots that this thing can get. Anyways, this thing is freaking crazy. It's pretty much the standard as far as like travel run and gun video goes, and I really love it. And it is currently bay number 7. So this is the 7th generation of my Mavic series. Hopefully can hold on to this one longer than some of the past ones. But yeah, I use this thing all the time. Alright, so next cinematic drone is none other than the Skydio 2. If you're not familiar with Skydio, it is basically like the smart car of drones. I absolutely love this thing. It's like a little Terminator robot that kind of scares me how smart it is. But you can get like some of the most unique drone shots that I've got this past year have been on this drone. It's so much fun to fly because you don't have to worry about hitting anything, so just the amount of like unique angles you can get with it can really set your footage apart from anyone else's. The footage is super crispy, it shoots 4K 60, and it is relatively small. When you put it in its case, it's still pretty thin, so it's easy to pack around. And I just love flying it. It is so much fun. Alright, so now I'm gonna get into little tiny GoPro small camera type things. At least that's the scientific name behind them. So in this section, GoPros, 360 cams, all of that good stuff. Alright, so with these, I'm going to start off with the absolute worst ones first. Just kidding, the rest of them are pretty good. But to start off, this is the first 360 cam that I ever got. It is a Ricoh Theta 5, I believe. The only reason I had this camera is because it was for a job, and honestly, I do not recommend getting this camera at all. So it is a 360 camera, but it doesn't have any stabilization, or at least when I was using it, it didn't have any stabilization. So it was like one of the most frustrating things in the world to edit with and shoot with. So yeah, I have one. I do not recommend getting one. Maybe their newer cameras are better, but yeah, Ricoh Theta 5 definitely was not it. Alright, next 360 camera. So this is the Insta360 One X. Again, I got this from a job and I absolutely love this thing. Insta360 does a really, really good job with the software. So you can take really crispy photos. I think this shoots like 5.7K. It's really stable. It's just like a really, really fun camera to shoot with. And it's super easy to use because you just connect it to your phone through an app. So if you're looking to get a cheaper 360 camera, because this is a little bit old, this is a really great option. Next is the GoPro equivalent of that. It's the GoPro 360 Max. The reason I got this was because I wanted to try to attach a 360 camera to my drone, and I thought it would be fun to get the Max and try it. And it actually ended up super cool. It worked. I didn't actually think it would work, but 360 FPV drones do apparently work. If you're looking for a 360 camera, these are like really similar. The only advantage that the Max has, I would say, is just having this little LCD screen. So if you want to vlog or you want to do stuff like that, you're definitely going to want to go with the GoPro. All right, next 360 slash not 360 camera is the Insta360 One R. So I'm actually doing a collaboration with Insta360 with this camera right now. That's why I'm testing it out. So I don't have a ton of experience with it, but the experience that I do have is really good. The stabilization is really good. It's really cool because this is actually modular. So this camera here, you can actually take this piece off and replace it with this little 360 attachment right here. Okay, there it goes. So easy as messing around with it for 30 seconds, and now it's a 360 camera. It kind of looks kind of gangster with this little red bar, so I like it. I'm currently doing some FPV testing with this, and I'm having a lot of fun with it, and that's pretty much it for 360 cameras. Alright, so the last thing, smaller camera that I have is the Hero 8. First of all, I use it for FPV, so I strap it onto the top of my FPV drone, and with Hypersmooth, as well as the addition of Real Steady, which is a program in my computer, it gives you like perfect cinematic smooth drone movements, like all the time. And I'm just blown away by the quality of the camera. In addition to that, I use it for underwater stuff, so whenever I'm diving, whenever I'm snorkeling, I just pull this thing out and yeah, I have an underwater camera. The mount that I have on it right now is actually a mouth mount, which is the most ridiculous looking GoPro mount, but it's sick. So yeah, it looks ridiculous, but it gives you the best POV GoPro view available. The head strap is just kind of loose and it falls off, and the chest mount is just too low. So this, you can actually look at the screen and you know it's gonna stay in your mouth because you can just bite down harder. In addition, this does hyperlapses, so I don't even do hyperlapses on this camera anymore. I just pull out my GoPro and do them on there. It also does star time lapses, takes raw photos, shoots 240 frames a second. It kind of just does it all, and I absolutely love it. And I can't talk about this GoPro without talking about these Polar Pro filters that I have for it. And basically what they do is just adjust the shutter speed on the GoPro, and it really helps take your GoPro footage from looking like GoPro footage to looking like really professional grade footage. Alright, so next up is FPV drones, and I'm just gonna sort of glaze over this. I'm not gonna get super into depth with this just because there's so much that goes into FPV drones, but I'm gonna just quickly show you the drones that I use. Alright, so these are my TBS Oblivions, and this one here is the one that I use for 360. As you can see, it has the GoPro mount just stuck on top of it. I just filed the top of the case and just stuck it on. And then this one here is where I fly my GoPro Hero 8 on, and this is the one that I fly the majority of the time. If you want to know more about my FPV setup, I'll link the video in the description. Like I said, there's a lot that goes into FPV, but the TBS Oblivion is definitely the easiest option. You can pretty much buy it and be in the air that same day. So anyone who's looking to get into FPV or anything like that, I always recommend the Oblivion. And the other reason why I have two of them, and I usually travel around with two of them at all times, is because I'm really proficient at crashing FPV drones. So usually when I have a trip that's FPV specific, I always bring two, just in case. Alright, really quick, actually this just came in the mail today. This is a Cinewhoop. It's a diatone Taycan. If you don't know what a Cinewhoop is, it's basically like that drone, except an indoor, smaller version of it. So this is gonna be great for the quarantine because I can now fly inside my house and just annoy my family with it. So that should be pretty fun. I haven't set this up to fly yet, so I don't have a ton of experience flying it. Like I said, I have FPV specific videos where I teach about the goggles and the controller and all of that, but that's just a quick little summary. The last two things that I'm going to talk about are actually two of my favorite pieces of camera equipment. One is this camera here. This is my Polaroid, and it seems super cliche using a Polaroid. It's just all of a sudden become this really trendy thing, but I absolutely love these because first of all, it's expensive to buy film, and second of all, it just takes a lot to get one photo. Every single photo that you take just means so much more, and it's something that you can instantly just hold up and look at and put on your wall. I have a bunch of Polaroids all over my room, and they're some of my favorite shots that I've taken from the past few years, just because I know the effort that went into taking each one. I've tried traveling around with the really small Polaroids and also these bigger ones, and these ones are definitely the ones you want to go with. These just break super easily because they're kind of bulky and just get hit, but this one's small enough to where you can pack it into your bag. So if you're going to be doing a bunch of traveling with the Polaroid, I would definitely recommend this kind of mid-size model. And the last thing that I'm actually going to go over is this phone. So this phone is the new iPhone 11, and to be honest, this is one of my favorite cameras to shoot on. I'm very much so the type of person who would lean towards being present and experiencing a moment rather than capturing it all the time. Especially recently, as I've gotten more into travel photography and videography and just storytelling in general, I'm all about just capturing the moment when it happens. I'm not huge on staging things, and I like the ability to just pull out a camera at will and be able to capture whatever's happening. For example, when we were in Mongolia, we would be sitting around these tables having these really cool family dinners. I felt like it would be really intrusive to pull out a big camera and film everyone, but having the ability to just pull out my phone and be like, hey, what's happening? What's going on over here? Just makes it a lot less intrusive, And personally for me, I can be more present if I don't have to stress so much about how perfect the shot is. And as phones get better and better, like this thing shoots in 4K, it shoots in slow motion, it shoots time lapses, it can really do it all, and it's in my pocket all the time. So no matter where I am, I always have a really solid camera to just pull out and capture the moment. And this phone has a super cool wide angle lens that I just love playing around with. So when I bought it, I specifically bought it just because I wanted to have that better camera that I always have with me. Anyways, that's it for all my camera gear. Now I'm gonna show you my bag and how I travel with it. All right, so this is my bag, and it may look like a piece of shit to you, but I absolutely love it. And I've been through so many different camera bags that just haven't lasted, but I've had this f-stop bag for about 3 years now, and I haven't had anything go wrong with it. It's super durable, super tough, and just gets the job done in every way. This thing has actually been through hell. At one point, when I was in Israel, a taxi driver backed his car up over this bag, over my camera gear, and everything was totally fine. I have no idea how, but everything was totally fine. And it's not like a hard shell backpack. It's also really good for hiking and trekking. It's got these straps, it's got the waist strap around it, so when I'm on long treks and everything, I don't feel like I have a bulky camera bag, I feel like I have a trekking bag. And even when it's loaded up with all my gear, there's still extra space for things like clothes, snacks, and other random things that other camera bags just wouldn't have room for. Up here you'll notice another thing that I have, which is a Peak Design capture clip. And what this is basically just a place to put your camera. So when I'm hiking and I'm trekking, I just lock my camera in here. It just clicks in. And this is actually the piece of camera equipment that I've had the longest. I think I've had this for 4 years now, and somehow it hasn't broken. If you're doing a lot of active stuff, moving around a bunch, where you're just constantly getting your camera out and in, I would definitely invest in one of these. It's one of my favorite things. It's just super handy to be able to clip your camera out and put it back in. So getting into the internals of the bag and how I pack it, I'm gonna take the camera over here and show you that. Alright guys, so I figured the best camera angle to do this part of the video with would just be the head mount GoPro. So this right here is pretty much all the gear that I travel with, and I'm just gonna pack it up and show you how it all fits inside this bag. So opening up the bag up, it's actually a back mounted bag. So I'm gonna unzip this, and in here is the first camera module. So here, gotta take the antenna off. This is where my FPV controller goes. Drone batteries, back to back. Drone controller, right here. 24 to 240. DSLR, right there. It just slides in right here. And the cool thing is with these, they're totally flexible. You can like unstrap them or unvelcro them and just move this and make this into kind of whatever you want. Next is bay number 7, goes in here. Polar Pro GoPro filters go right here. My microphone I actually put inside this smaller module here. So in here, what I have is all my FPV stuff, extra propellers, extra antennas, the antenna for the controller I put in there, as well as any extra camera gear that I might have, just smaller stuff. And also in this side is my FPV goggles. Now this module here just goes on top of this first one, like that. Back of the bag here, this is where all my batteries go. How I'm able to keep track of which batteries are charged and not is just through rubber bands. So when a battery is charged, I put a rubber band around it, and then when it's discharged, I put it back in here and it doesn't have a rubber band. So closing this section up, boom, as you can see, it's 2 separate sections. My Polaroid, I just put it on the side here usually. And then my FPV drone, I actually just strap onto the outside of the bag, and that just sits like that. And then coming over to the Skydio, close that up, and the case fits perfectly right there. That is the bag all wrapped up, and inside this bag it has 3 drones, a DSLR, GoPro, pretty much everything that you would need. And to be honest, the FPV equipment takes up most of this bag just because it's super bulky. So I can fit so much gear inside this thing. And the other feature that I absolutely love about the bag is, like I said, it's completely modular. So let's say that I wasn't shooting a certain day and I just needed a bag that I could walk around a city with. Maybe I just wanted to go to a cafe or something and work on my laptop. I can just take the camera equipment module out, and now this is just a completely normal backpack. Also, for security screenings through the airport, this is so nice because instead of taking all your stuff out, you can just take this module out, put it like this, and TSA is able to look at it, go through screeners, and especially in places like China, if you're going through the airport there, they make you take everything out. So this module is perfect. And that's about it for the gear that I travel with. So guys, that is it for what's in my camera bag. If you guys have any further questions, let me know down in the comments and I'll do my best to get back to you. I'm gonna play us out with a little sad sequence for all the drones that I've lost over the years. But other than that, I will see you guys in the next video.